everyone, my name is Isaruka Yamamoto and today I am playing World of Warships. And I am playing the Tier 8 premium battleship Odin, which is currently available in the Dockyard event. You could get parts of this ship basically being built up by, I think it's called shipbuilding stages or something like that, through directives. That stage has currently ended, but if you go to the dockyard now you can still see the progress, and if you haven't received the Odin yet, you are still able to pick it up. So if you have completed all of the directives, you would be stuck at stage 18 out of 20 required for the Odin, leaving the Odin 2 stages away at a total cost of 3500 doubloons, which is where it finished for me. And then you can get this battleship for that cost. Of course, if you didn't get that far, it will be a bit more expensive. I think it's quite a cool way to present a new battleship, but the price itself is a bit steep maybe. Of course you do also get other rewards, but honestly the Odin is not that special that it's worth this much doubloons in my opinion. Anyway, when we go have a look at what the Odin actually does, it's of course fairly comparable to the Bismarck and Tirpitz, the Tier 8 battleship brothers, since it has the same role. However, when we look at the actual gameplay and the characteristics of the ship, we immediately notice some quite vital differences. First of all, when we look at the consumable layout here, we see that we have torpedoes, which the Tirpitz has, but also the hydroacoustic surge typically found on the Bismarck. So the Odin gets both. We also see that here in our minimap. And that's a very interesting combination, and it can be devastating. Now, I won't show that in this battle, I hope to show that in the second battle. In this battle I will show, however, the secondaries, which have a phenomenal range of 11.6 kilometers, very good, starting at the German Tier 8 battleships basically, and the Odin inherits that. The Odin is also very stealthy, so it can basically sneak up to enemies if you would like that, and then rip open your secondaries. In this battle I won't be able to do that, but and then in addition the Odin has very strong armour, but it's got a fairly low hit point pool. Now why is that? Strong armor combined with low hit point pool. Basically, unlike the Tirpitz and the Bismarck, which are battleships, the Odin is classified more as a battlecruiser. And through that we can see it's a bit more nimble. It turns even quicker than the Tirpitz does, for instance. But it's also equipped with 305mm guns. Now many people see that as a disadvantage, since they're actually lighter guns than the guns found on the Bismarck and Tirpitz. But anyone who knows the German 380mm guns and how reliable those are, they will know that it's not necessarily a disadvantage. You just use the 305s in a different way. Now I honestly thought I had an amazing salvo there at the outer, possibly citadeling in twice or something like that, but the Bismarck on our team simply hit him real hard just before I did. So I was a bit wrong there. But anyway, what we can see here is the main guns on the Odin reload fairly quickly. Now armor piercing shells, well, they definitely won't be able to Citadel, the Bismarck or Alditorio, which is basically a Roma, at this range. We can deal some consistent and pretty severe damage to them, and once they start shooting at me, we'll find that they will really struggle to do anything back at me. And that's of course what we want. I basically want to steadily push in on them now, while not taking any damage myself and just gradually dashing the enemy down. If I can manage to do that, then we should be all set. Now of course the enemy Bismarck does rip open his secondaries, he's also got the range for that. But I start throwing mine back at him, and for some reason he doesn't seem to have his secondary set on me yet. There we go, he's already shooting back at me. And of course not every single salvo from our guns is going to hurt a lot, but we can see here that if I angle properly against the Bismarck, I won't really take any damage at all. So I decide to switch to high explosive for a single round, see if I can pop a fire on him maybe. And now in this case I don't want to push in too hard, so I'm gonna slow down a little to prevent overextending, but I do want to make sure that I've got both the Bismarck and the Littorio preferably in secondary range, but at least one of them, so I can keep using my secondaries to just whittle them down a bit. And the Bismarck is taking some proper damage. Now they're not really focusing me at the moment, which of course makes life easy because I don't have that much HP to lose. So it's rather they don't shoot at me at all, but I think the enemy team is mainly preoccupied trying to take our Prince Eugen down, at least that's what I'd be doing. I see quite some shells flying his way. But right now the Bismarck is shooting at me. You can see here it does do some damage, but yeah, not that much really. And even though I only have these quite light guns, I score quite some decent damage on him as well. In the meantime, of course, my secondaries still deal some damage, pull a fire every now and then, so that really helps increasing the pressure on those ships. And now what we would quite want is to take out either the Bismarck or the Littorio. Right now the Littorio is angling in a way that I should definitely be shooting at it, and I think it's gonna go down pretty soon now. Bismarck actually shifted its focus away from me. They're not attacking me too hard at the moment, which is nice because then you can just keep pushing up, and even if they would actually shoot at me, I could probably take the damage. But it's better of course if they don't shoot at you. It makes life a lot easier. Now this does show a couple of the strengths of the Odin quite well. So the ballistics, you can use the guns quite well even against these angled battleships. You just shoot armor piercing shells a bit higher on their ship and you can deal some significant damage. Of course on cruisers you can just aim for the citadels and completely wreck them. It's very flexible weaponry against destroyers as well. The survivability and secondary hits are amazing, but in this battle I'm not really able to show off any of the true specialties of the Odin in my opinion, which would be the torpedoes and the hydroacoustic surge. So what I want to do is try if I can find a battle where we can show those off a little bit more. Now this in itself is of course not a bad battle at all. It's not very hard to play a battle like this. It's just gradually push in, don't make any big mistakes, don't over angle, don't go in too fast, and just think about your ammo types every now and then. Make sure the enemy takes more damage than you do effectively. And the Odin is very good at that. You can just force the enemy to be in a position where they need to take more damage than you do. And that makes it a very interesting battleship in my opinion. Excellent brawling rule, but let's have a look at what it can do in real close combat, so hydroacoustic and torpedo range, because that's where it's supposed to really shine. So I'm gonna try and be a bit more aggressive in this battle, try and get the use out of the torpedoes, out of the hydroacoustic surge. But normally it's a bit hard to really play for that. So I'm currently playing a ranked battle, like I was last battle. And it's a bit easier to really look for those encounters on your own initiative. Now what I'm gonna do here is move towards the A cap, and I'm gonna hope there will be enemies trying to push in on the A cap, or that I can push in there myself. That's of course not guaranteed success, but well, let's have a look. Playing a battle like this is not necessarily best for your overall efficiency, so if you want to just perform well and have a good game, then I definitely recommend that you just focus on your general gameplay style. And if that happens to be like the previous battle, that you just keep following people around and never get into real close combat with them, that's fine. In this case I am forcing it a bit, and that is normally not the best way to go. Sometimes, however, you just need to have a bit of fun, and for me, of course, I also need to try and get my content sometimes. And this is a battle where I think I can get into close combat, so let's give it a go. Now of course what I'm doing here is really try and get my ship angled towards the enemy all the time, so if they start shooting at me, and I've got the indicator here telling me how many people are aimed for me, quite a couple of them are actually shooting for me, but I'm hoping that most of the damage will be absorbed by my armour, although they actually seem to be shooting at the Odin just behind me. Taking a shot at the enemy Odin, but unfortunately I miss. Now, while we do have a destroyer somewhere out here, he seems to be going to the B cap, so way further out that direction. I actually go undetected. We spot the Kagero out there somewhere. And that means I can try and move in towards A, or maybe even behind A. Now of course I do have to be a bit careful, because the enemy has an Odin, and he can do the exact same things that I can. So I'd rather outplay him, and that's easier said than done, and especially when I want to push in, it's quite difficult to actually outplay him, and especially when there's two other ships there as well that I need to deal with. So what I want to do now is just move in close on them, but we'll see what happens then. I'm not in a hurry to rush in there yet. So I'm getting spotted, and I initially thought, okay, that should be a cruiser lying around here, but it clearly is the Kagero who moved back in here. And a safe place for me to hide would actually be to go into the A-cap, I suppose. At least that's what I'm hoping. Get a bit of damage from the aircraft carrier. I decide to drop my torpedoes in case the enemy team decides to push up there. It seems quite unlikely to me, but then if they do, they would eat a massive amount of damage. And this is a bit of a bummer because the Kagero has actually dropped torpedoes on me way out from the flank and hits me with one torpedo, and that already hurts quite badly. So what I'm just gonna do now is I'm gonna activate my hydroacoustic search, which allows me to see exactly what the enemy is up to. And I'm just gonna sit in the A-cap and mark out my plan, see if I need to move up or if the enemy needs to move up. One thing I can tell is the enemy Odin is moving up next to me, trying to get behind me. Now my torpedoes currently can't hit him, but if I steer into the island a bit more, I do have a bit of leeway here where I should be able to hit him. So put my ship into reverse to get even a bit more arc. Kagero is moving in on us as well now, but hopefully he gets taken out. Of course I will definitely focus him if needed, but I also need to watch out for the Baltimore and the Bismarck. But I'll spot the Bismarck if he pushes up with my hydroacoustic search, which is happening right now. So we drop some torpedoes on the enemy Odin. We put our ship in full forward because we really need to move now. Hit a torpedo on the enemy Odin, and yeah, I completely fluked my shot there. But what's gonna happen now is obviously the enemy Odin wants to send torpedoes to me as well. So I turn in my other side, use torpedoes, and now I hope I can avoid as many torpedoes from the enemy Odin as possible. I do take one, but I don't even think that armed. I'm not quite sure actually. But now we're in a bit of a hairy situation with the Bismarck in front of us and the Baltimore fall to our broadside, and of course the Baltimore can really punish us here. And if I would have my torpedoes ready, I could obviously just torpedo them both, but clearly I don't. And yeah, that's quite a shame. I managed to get a last shot off on the Baltimore, which deals quite some damage, and I think I set him on fire as well. But in these kind of situations you need to be very careful with the Odin. While this hydroacoustic search and the torpedoes are very potent weapons indeed, and the very low hit point pool can be quite unforgiving. And of course I kind of knew this was gonna happen, you know, with the Baltimore on the side and then chasing the Bismarck. I sort of knew that pushing in here would be a very bad idea. But I was trying to show off these torpedoes and the hydroacoustic search, and then you know, you want to make it work in close combat. Yeah, and that's when the Odin's armor basically falls apart. Now, of course, the torpedo and hydroacoustic surge ironically allowed me to take out the enemy Odin, who clearly misjudged what an Odin can do. He should have seen those torpedoes coming way better, maybe expected turret swing as well. But all in all, I think that was an interesting encounter, and I think it definitely helped the enemy push off at A. So while it's not the most efficient or effective battle, I think it's quite fun to play a battle this way, and it's really cool that the Odin can take such role. And of course, preferably you take it in a situation where the chances are a bit more in your favor, so you'd have a better chance of actually winning. So for instance, only against a Bismarck or a Baltimore, or maybe the two of them without the Odin even. But it's really quite cool that the Odin is such a versatile ship with the 305mm guns, the hydroacoustic and the torpedoes, a very good armour scheme, good manoeuvrability. So all in all, I think it's a very cool ship. And if you are quite close to unlocking it in the dockyard, so say 2 or 3 stages, then I can definitely recommend using a couple of hundred of doubloons to unlock it. But of course, it's your money, and well, don't go overboard with it. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about the Odin, if you want to see more of it. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. See you all around.